hell's dark maze. Swords clash, the echoes scream, blood-soaked ground, a devil's dream. Fire rains, the battle calls. Demons dance as heaven falls. Choirs wail, the damned ignite. Infernal's wrath, eternal night. Steel bites, the heavens quake. Flesh and bone, the earth will break. Ashes rain, the reapers feast. Darkness spreads, a crimson beast. Thunder cracks, the end draws near. Hope draws in the ocean of fear. Angels weep, their wings in flame. Lost to the void, none remain. Fire rains, the battle calls. Demons dance as heaven falls. Choirs wail, the damned ignite. Infernal's wrath, eternal echoes fade, the war is done. A blood-red sky, a blackened sun. Souls consumed, no path to light. Hail victorious, endless
So why use ground?
flames rise, the sky ablaze. Shadows writhe in hell's dark maze. Swords clash, the echoes scream, blood-soaked ground, a devil's dream. Fire rains, the battle calls. Demons dance as heaven falls. Choirs wail, the damned ignite. Infernal's wrath, eternal night.
Hello! Hello, world! What are you doing to the mods? Hello to the world. Sup, fuckers? Hello, I am Cheese Weeb. Hang on. I don't know if you heard the Grammarly sponsor. I forgot to switch to my no ad account before I started. And I suddenly just had a person screaming, "Join us on Grammarly!" I think I switched over before too long, but hello to the world out there. Let's see. Here we go. Here we go. Hello. Howdy. 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 Oh, hello. It is a hot day. Hot day in Georgia today, let me tell you. It is warm outside. It is on the verge of even just like, what was that new movie? Was it Thunderbolts that had the guy from Stranger Things as the Russian, the Black Widow spinoff, I think. But there was a villain that upon seeing somebody, they just atomized them. They just that's what the complaint was about, huh? The mod complaint. Expired, not posted. Oh, sorry, I didn't clear it in time. I appreciate the attempt. Anyway, it is hot, and it feels like when you walk outside, the sun is simply going to atomize you. It is brutal out there. This seems a little loud. That might be a little bit better for right now. Anyway, hello out there. My name is Kevin. I am a cheesemonger. I am a professional cheesemonger by trade, by passion, by desire, by what's another adjective I can I can use to lengthen this sentence out in practice. But I'm a professional cheesemonger. I was born in Georgia and went to college for theater. And up until my senior year, I continued down that path. I was a carpentry and set design major, specifically a technical theater major in like set or in design and technology. But I was a carpenter and set designer was my focus. And loved my time there. Learned a shit ton. Learned an absolute ton of stuff that I still, I think, carry with me. I still use every day. And I think it was a super useful thing to go for. Unfortunately, I dropped out before finishing due to personal reasons / having to work more hours at a job, as well as just life going on at the time. But anyway, I dropped out and became the general manager of a bowling alley. At which point I faced abuse by the company I was working for. They had me working, as a salaried manager. I was working typically about 100 hours a week, I think was my worst point. Usually around like the 80 to 90 hours a week mark, though. And that lasted for, I think, about 8 months before I had to leave that job at that point due to my own health purposes or reasons. I left that job and found a job as events coordinator for a museum in the Georgia area, and that was a lot of fun. I got to practice a lot of things. I got some experience with working events, with bringing in people, with working with large amounts of people, and I already had some experience with that through my bowling alley days, through working events, birthday parties. I maintain there's nothing more stressful than dealing with a birthday party, a birthday mom. Dealing with a birthday mom on their children's birthday is always a stressful ordeal. No matter what, something's always going to go wrong in my experience, and no matter how hard you try, nothing can go perfectly. But that's life. So I left the bowling alley, worked in a museum for a little while, and I got to go to a cheese class in New Orleans. I've always been very interested in cheese. I've always been wanting to learn more about cheese. I first experienced cheese going to New York. My first trip to New York, I got to go to Saxelby Cheesemongers, a famous fromagerie in the New York area. They can now be found in Chelsea Market, and I recommend anybody to shop from them. Anne Saxelby was the founder. She unfortunately passed away a few years ago to cancer, but their organization, the Saxelby Foundation, works really hard to provide scholarships and learning opportunities for youth that are interested in either in anything, whether that's farming, whether that's learning about sustainable agriculture, whether that's learning about animals and how to make cheese or how to sell cheese or how to practice cheese. They do it all, and wonderful place. But I got to go to New York, and I got to go to Saxelby's, and I tried cheese there, and I remembered talking to the cheesemonger and being incredibly impressed that he was so knowledgeable and so had such a foundation of a wealth of knowledge in this one particular field. I tend to get hyper fixated on things, and for a while that was learning carpentry, because it seemed as much as I learned, there was always more to learn about carpentry or construction or new ways to design things. Right now this has been cheese for many years. It's really tasty. It's a pretty glamorous lifestyle, considering if you're ever having a bad day, you get to eat cheese. There's all sorts of benefits that come along with it. It's a path that I recommend for anybody. I also have a big appreciation for what I refer to as like the peasant jobs. These are the jobs that are coming out of as we develop towns and as we develop city-states after the fall of the Roman Empire, and as we enter into feudalism. There's a class of what are referred to typically as peasant jobs, including everything from bakers to cheesemongers to fishmongers to butchers. These are the class of people that were more heavily taxed in a lot of places, and oftentimes given the lowest compensation, as they were considered to be, again, peasant jobs, or low qualification jobs in terms of the learning requirements. And so with such a wide field and such a wide variety of a product like cheese, you have so many different types that you'll simply never run out of trying new cheeses. They're constantly making new cheeses, of course. They hang on one second. Oh, let me turn that off a bit. It's very bright. But they, so yes, there's all different types of things that you can learn about cheese. It's been a hyperfixation of mine for a long time. There's a lot of science involved with it. There's a lot of fun food and a lot of fun flavor. I've always been very food motivated. I've always been a food fan, and cheese is one of those comfort foods for me, so everything just lined up perfectly. But I got to go to a class in New Orleans put on at the Sazerac House. I believe they mostly make Aperol and spirits, if memory serves, but they also were hosting St. James Cheese Company, and there was a cheesemonger by the name of Molly there. They are a wonderful cheesemonger. I think they're in charge of the education at St. James Cheese Company I always go to I think there's a downtown and a warehouse district. I always go to the warehouse district. That was also one I preferred. They also have great sandwiches. Phenomenal food, and they're just the best people in the world. But I had a cheese class with Molly, and it was a wonderful experience. I learned a lot. They were incredibly knowledgeable, and again, I was fascinated by this wealth of knowledge about this hyperfixation subject that I had and was enjoying a lot. And so I was asking, I think, basically every question in the class. There were a couple of other people, but overall, my hand was going up more than most, because I was asked. I had a lot of questions I wanted the answer to, as far as specific cheeses, as far as how cheese is made, etc. You know, a lot of the standard questions about, like, what are the crunchy bits in cheese? What are the Tyson crystals that give it a little bit of pop when you're eating it? All these different characteristics, being able to speak so eloquently about them. I was really impressed, and after the class was over, they were kind enough to beeline it straight to my table and say, "Hey, you seemed really interested, so I wanted to come over and see, like, if you have experience in cheese, or if you have any interest in working in cheese." And I said, "I'm so glad you asked. I'm so glad you've come over. I have always been, like, I think it was because I played too much Harvest Moon in my childhood, but I've always been very interested in the farm lifestyle, the aesthetic of having your homeland and being freed from the shackles of capitalism. And through this, those games have the farming lifestyle has always been a very, like, romanticized idea for me. Upon working on a farm in high school, I worked on a horse ranch for a little while. And saw, like, just taking care of 8 horses, how much work that entailed. And I realized I didn't want to be a farmer. Being a farmer is really, really hard. I talk about this in my more political streams that I've done, but, like, Stardew Valley, for example, has ruined the idea of what what like the homestead lifestyle is truly like. The idea that it's a nice little easy like cottagecore adjacent content. I just take care of my little circle of chickens, and then I go and milk my cow, and I tend my little garden. I have all the food that my family of 6 needs for the entire year. It's very unrealistic. So through this, I realized that being a farmer is really, really shitty work, and I mean that literally, and that you are shoveling shit all day long. Especially if you have like a barn, most of your work schedule is going to be motivated around dealing with shit, and that's not that fun of a lifestyle when you're actually dealing with it on a day to day. I don't really like the like alpha male aspect that comes along with the show, but I always think back to like Peaky Blinders. There's a line where Thomas Shelby at one point he's talking about they're walking in a barn or something. He says to somebody, like at the end of the day, those in power are going to look down at us as shit shovelers, because that's what we are. We're shit shovelers. We work here in the shit. We work here in the sewers and the gutters, and that's how we'll always be seen. That line always really stuck with me. But I digress. I was able to ask all kinds of questions to Molly. They were incredibly engaging. They were incredibly sweet. They took their time answering all my questions, and it was again very sweet. Not only because they took the time, but also because there was a line of people trying to have a couple of questions answered that I assume were too nervous to ask in front of an audience of people. At least that seems to be the case. There's a lot of like nerves around. I'm sure everyone's experienced this in school at some point. Feeling nerves of your questions sounding dumb, not being willing to ask something when you don't understand it because you don't want to be seen as the one person that doesn't know what's going on. So they were very kind in the fact that they were willing to engage for so long with me as well. But through our conversation, I asked the question of like, okay, so I'll be honest, I've always had after like learning more about cheese, after learning more about like what cheesemongers do, I have like an interest in like trying this out. Is there like viable work? Is it like, what is the method? What is the pathology? They specifically, I believe, had a degree in, I think it was food science. I'm pretty sure it was food science. And so I was wondering if, there was a requirement as far as that or certification. And they were really kind. And I always answer to the best in the same way that I can of, generally speaking, you just have to go in somewhere with an idea and a passion and a base knowledge of what you're going into. Knowing that it's not simply just the working at a deli counter, but you're working with cheese that is made by artisans that needs to be respected, needs to be taken care of, not just necessarily your standard deli cheeses, but also just the inclination. Just because you don't know what specifically a cheese is or how it tastes yet is not a reason into why you can't get into this work. That's, in my experience, simply a better mind to mold, because they haven't been prejudiced by potentially bad ideas. Not to say that every idea that I have is correct, but in my experience with training people as a lead cheesemonger, those who have worked in similar or more deli, boar's head adjacent cheese counters have a lack of understanding and potentially bad teaching, when you're trying just boar's head products and being told what it tastes like and how to describe it as people. That doesn't really translate to artisanal cheese in the same way. So I think the biggest fear in getting involved with it a lot of time is the fear of the learning curve. But again, in my experience, that's something that I prefer, to have somebody who isn't as knowledgeable in the subject, but rather somebody who's extra passionate about the subject. Because like I can teach cheese. I can teach somebody how to talk about cheese and where cheese comes from and how it's made. But I really can't teach somebody a passion for it or the desire to learn about it. So I took a cheese class with Molly. Molly told me that the best way to get involved was to just try to find a cheese counter somewhere, go in and say, hello. Hi, I'm so-and-so. I work at this place, and maybe I don't work anywhere, but I have an interest in working at this place, and I would like to try out doing cheesemongering. And so that's what I did. I moved up to Chicago, and I went into I moved up there, and I started working at a smoothie shop that was pretty terrible for a while. I don't recommend. I think that company's closed down since then. But I quit that job and was able to because I quit that job, I was able to go to an open interview at Italy, an Italian company. They have spots all over the world, lots of them in Italy itself. More of a normalized grocery store there. A friend not too long ago sent me a Snapchat of the airport. I think it's the Rome airport, Italy. Because they just have one in the airport, you know, for your cheese to go as you're taking it out of the country. But they have plenty of locations, for example, in Paris. I think they have one in Tokyo. They have a London location. They have Toronto. In the U.S., they have New York. They have 3 in New York now. They have, how many Italys do they have? 3 in New York, Chicago, Boston, Dallas. They have, what else do they have? They have Silicon Valley. They have Los Angeles. They opened, I think, a couple more since then, but they have around like 10 Italys across the U.S., maybe like 12 or 15 at this point. I've never known why they haven't opened one in the South. There's none whatsoever in the south of Georgia, or in the south of the U.S. Georgia, Alabama, Florida, etc. But I worked at Italy for a little while. I started out as a cheesemonger, as well as I think they called it at the time a vegetable butcher. And so I was in charge of like making sure the veggie section was stocked up, as well as cutting up fruit for people, as well as helping people as needed wherever I happened to be. I did that for a little bit until they were like, okay, butcher, I barely know her. I worked there for a little while at the vegetable butcher counter. And I worked there until they were like, okay, this person is reliable. We can bring them over to the cheese counter full time. So I moved over to the cheese counter, and there I started a new training regiment. I was learning about cheese every day. The best practice I had to learning about cheese was to take home like 3 at a time. I would take those cheeses home, try them, eat them with various things, whatever I wanted to have with dinner that night. And then I would learn everything that I could about them. And then the next day that I went into work, I would talk about those cheeses as much as possible. And I expanded my lexicon of cheese over time through this way. But eventually, now I think I have somewhere around like 200 cheeses like rolling around in my brain, getting in the way of like useful information at any given time. Which is always very exciting. It only sometimes gets in the way of things, especially because like some cheeses have funny names, and like for example, like Midnight Moon is a name of a cheese, and so like sometimes it's midnight and I see the moon and that pops into my head. Sometimes I think about getting bamboozled, and I think about the cheese Bamboozle, a washed rind cheese coming from that one was from Pennsylvania. But there's so many cheeses out there. One thing I've also learned is that for every good cheese out there, there's at least like 10 to 20 bad cheeses out there. A big part of the process is trying the cheeses and finding the ones that are not good and which ones you do not want to carry. Because there's a lot of people that have the desire for a homestead and think, oh, well, I can, start making cheese. It's got to be something that's not too difficult to do. And then they actually start making cheese, and it's just the worst thing you've ever tried. You shouldn't be messing with cultures and bacteria and aging things if you don't have a firm understanding. I remember I was doing a tour of a farm at one point, in which their food area, their manufacturing area for their cheese was connected to the barn. And through that connection point, there wasn't any kind of, excuse me, there wasn't any kind of decontamination area. There wasn't any kind of like breeze bacteria where all the bacteria and debris gets blown off of you. There was nothing to that nature of any sort. But not only that, they also just walked straight from the barns directly into the actual food processing area without changing their boots, without changing any clothes, without putting on any like hair nets, without putting on any kind of like, again, without washing their hands, and just led me in and said, okay, now we're going in this way. And I was horrified. And we did not get cheese from them. I prefer not to talk about them anymore. So there's a lot of different aspects of cheese that I was able to learn in my time at Italy. Through there, I was able to learn fast-natured cheese counter work as we were a tourist destination in the middle of downtown Chicago. It was a very exciting time. Christmas at Italy was probably the most dangerous situation I've ever been in. I recall being in between two people that were holding knives to each other at the bowling alley over one of them, I think, causing somebody else to not get a strike. That was not nearly as horrifying as the Italian grandmother screaming thinner at me as thinner. I barely know her, screaming thinner at me as I was slicing her prosciutto for her. As I have a line of people that's about 45 people deep of every 45 people deep. Every single person. None of them really want to buy anything. All of them just want to try all of the samples that they can and make it a really long experience and learn as much as they can in that quick little turnaround time. It's a very violent experience going through it. So Italy, I was able to learn a lot of skills in terms of fast counter work, in terms of serving a lot of people, and a lot of those I had been able to bring over from the bowling alley. But I also had the opportunity to work with a lot of cheese. We had at any given time around 100 to 120 different types of cheese, as well as we had about 60 to 70 different types of meat at any given time, and that was just in our charcuterie cheese area, not to mention everything else around that. So we had a plethora of products for me to learn about, plethora of things for me to try, for me to taste, for me to bring home and try cooking. I recall my roommates at the time being very pleased about the fact when, for example, I would bring home a free a Wagyu steak that I had gotten from the butcher counter that the butcher just handed me and said, "Hey, you deserve this today. We can't sell it anymore, but it's still perfectly fine to eat. You go enjoy that." Or the fishmonger coming over and saying, "Hey, here's a shrimp cocktail. Here's an entire shrimp cocktail platter. Enjoy that." A lot of the benefits of Italy was also we had a staff meal every day, a fantastic opportunity to eat. We had free food at the end of every shift, so loaves of bread that we were able to, hey, let's go, former roommate, love the free cheese, love the free cheese, love the free pasta. You remember the pasta though? All the stuffed pasta, the ravioli that I got fresh. Former roommate can attest. The food was good. The food was tasty. I appreciate the primary resource. I remember the pasta. I remember so Italy does have. I don't necessarily recommend buying stuff from there because it's really overpriced, as well as they've been. An American investment company bought out the American portion, or is like heavily involved with it now. And the first thing that they did was cut as much staff as they could, mainly the lower end of staff. There was also a situation where, from my understanding at the Italy Chicago, there were two people that were potentially victims of being victims of gun violence in the store. And those two people stopped the shooter as well as took the gun from him. And then Italy proceeded to fire the two employees that did that. That's my understanding of the situation. I could be wrong, so don't hold me like liable, legally or anything. But I don't necessarily recommend shopping at Italy. But if you do go there, they do have a really good. It's a goat cheese ravioli. I think it's goat cheese and is it spinach? Oh, be quiet, Ozzy. Ozzy's upset because he can hear a cat running around, and he's put away right now. He's gonna come out later. Ozzy, hush. Ozzy, can you quiet down? Thank you. That's not quiet. Anyway, at Italy, we had all kinds of free food. It was absolutely delicious, but I was able to learn a lot. And after becoming the lead cheesemonger at the counter, I worked quite a bit more hours. I was up to 40 hours a week. I got that promotion within about 6 months, and I mainly got that, 6 months. I was the lead cheesemonger. Soon after getting that position, the person that hired me, he actually stepped down from his position as the person in charge of the cheese department, which was one of the saddest days of my life. He's about the most kind and generous and giving individuals I've ever met in my life. Shout out David. I know several Davids like that. Very consistent. But the person that replaced him only lasted a little bit in that position before they were able to move on to get a less strenuous job working at a I think cheese distributor as a cheese distributor. So they moved on and worked there. And at that point, it was myself and the other lead cheesemonger who was in charge of the mozzarella side of the business. It was myself and that person that took the reins of the cheese counter. I handled the main counter, and he handled the mozzarella until they brought in a new manager who only lasted, I think, like 3 months, and he was incredible too. But the company just is sort of exploitative. And so through all of this, I had the opportunity to learn a lot of cheese, to go to several food shows, try a bunch of cheese at those food shows, and again, learn so much and meet a ton of incredible people that were all very knowledgeable. From there, I moved on to becoming, I was the operations manager of the events team. That was a fun job. It was very demanding. Most days lasted from about 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. And considering my commute to work was an hour to an hour and 20 minutes on the public transit Chicago train system at all wild hours of the day, was not the best mentally. I recall being victimized by the Red Line just about 5 times a week. Through one way or another, everything from people threatening to kill me because I got in their way, everything from people or the train being delayed and me being late to work because somebody decided to jump in front of the train while it was moving. All types of trouble on the Red Line on the Chicago CTA, excuse me. But I worked at the events on the events department for a little while until I eventually went back to the cheese counter. I left that, went to a new cheese store in Atlanta. I worked there for about 2 years, again, learning more about cheese. And from there, I now am I don't really know what to call myself other than a cheesemonger, pirate, because I like One Piece, Pokemon trainer. I think I'm going to start doing Pokemon streams. Unemployed, but we're going to run with that for a bit. But anyway, all that to say, I've been learning about cheese for a while, and I'm excited now to talk about some cheese. I moved into a new place, and I have this huge kitchen now. I've got this huge kitchen to work with that has all these nice things, including this big old island that has a stainless steel top to it, easy for cleaning. I've got this huge chalkboard that I have behind me for drawing for things and helping explain things with. All kinds of wonderful things, all kinds of things to work with. So I'm very excited to get started. Let me pull up a couple of things real quick. So we have a couple of cheeses that I'm going to talk about today. Namely, we have a cheese called L'etivaz, and we have a cheese called Schallenberg. Now, both of these are going to be cheeses that are made in Switzerland. They are both cow cheeses, and they are both unpasteurized cheeses. So let's talk about cheese a little bit as we get started. I'll put up a little picture as well so we can talk about, we can look at things. Where's the, oh no, that's the wrong button. Where's the picture button? There's the picture button. No, that's not the picture button. That's the picture button. There's a picture button. So we have cheese to talk about. So when we talk about cheese, there's a couple of important things to keep in mind. Well, first and foremost, cheese is a ever-living thing. Now, when we're talking about cheese, we are not talking about like deli cheese like you would normally expect. We're more so talking about, that's going to get in the way actually. We're not talking so much about deli cheese. Instead, we're more so talking about, and let me know if anybody can't hear me very well, we're more so talking about artisanal cheese. And so what I mean by that is specifically, oh no, my apron is breaking. My apron might break today. I hope it doesn't. And so what I specifically mean by artisanal cheeses is typically cheeses that are going to be in the wheel format. There's a couple different shapes that they can come in, whether that's in the shape of a wheel, whether that's in the shape of a big cube. But typically these are going to be smaller format cheeses. These are going to be cheeses that are not touched by machines. These are going to be cheeses that are not mass produced. These are going to be more privatized, or rather more smaller format production sources. So there's a lot of benefits to that. One, in not being touched by machines, you gain individualism in the cheese. You gain a little bit more of a inconsistent quality to it, which I think ends a little bit more of a romantic side to the cheese overall. Having a little bit of a inconsistency with a product, while can be annoying. If you're going to McDonald's, you want to go to McDonald's because you're providing consistency. Usain Bolt goes to McDonald's because he can be consistently provided the same meal 20 times leading up to the Olympics. But when we're talking about like artisanal products, a lot of the romanticism behind them comes from specifically the difference of the quality of the product over time. So when you have a younger cheese, typically those are going to be more mild cheeses. And when you have older cheeses, those are going to be more powerful cheeses. Now, the cheeses that we have today are specifically Alpine style cheeses. So Alpine styles use a specific set of cultures that are going to be from the Swiss Alps. You have Alpine styles that are made outside of Switzerland. For example, in the US, one of the more popular Alpine style cheeses is going to be called Pleasant Ridge Reserve. It comes from Wisconsin. It was actually featured, if not the most recent season, it was the most recent by 2 seasons. It was 2 seasons ago. It was featured on Top Chef, as they had a whole season set in Top Chef had the whole season set in Wisconsin. There was an episode that they brought on the cheesemaker. His name is Andy, I believe Andy Hatch, but he's an incredible cheesemaker. He actually just recently was given the title of Master Cheesemaker, which there's only, I believe, 5 to 8, maybe 11 master cheesemakers in the U.S. Most of them are going to be in Europe, but he's an incredibly well-talented person. They typically have 2 cheeses, or they have 2 cheeses that they make there. They have the Pleasant Ridge Reserve, which is their flagship Alpine style, which is known for having like a caramelized onion flavor, a little bit more of a poppy texture. They also have their Rush Creek Reserve, which is a award-winning cheese that specifically they use the last milking before they put the animals into the barns for the winter. During the winter in Wisconsin, because it gets so cold and there's so much snow, the cows don't have access to the same level of grass. And so during the winter months, cows are going to be mainly fed hay. They're going to be mainly fed dried grass as much as possible. Other sources, including feed, animal feed, and what have you. But I digress. So with Alpine styles, you have the Alpine styles that are not from Switzerland, and those are using the cultures that you would typically find in Switzerland. To be an actual Alpine cheese, that is to be from Switzerland, and that is specifically to be made at a certain elevation in the Swiss Alps. In the mountains. So as you go up mountains in Switzerland, you have different flora, fauna, bacteria that the animals are able to eat, and that is going to impact the cheese in different ways, add different flavor profiles to it, add different sources of bacteria to the animals' diversity of their microbiome. So there's all these different aspects that come along with eating different flora, whether that's bacteria or whether that's grasses, lichens, mosses, coming from bushes or berries or flowers as you go up higher at elevations. But when we talk about cheese, typically you have 2 options. That is typically either pasteurized or you have unpasteurized. Now, pasteurization is, I think you can see that. Yeah, you can see that fine. Now, pasteurization is the method in which you heat up the milk that you're going to be making cheese with. You heat that milk up to above the internal temperature of the animal. So typically when you're talking about like cows, you want to heat their cow's milk up. I think it's anywhere like 137 to 141 degrees. That's going to be the like typical margin that most cheese producers heat their milk to, especially in the U.S., to prevent certain bacteria from forming and surviving in the cheese. And that's going to specifically be bacteria like Listeria, E. coli, things along that line. Now, when you look at cheese that's coming from artisanal cheesemakers like we're talking about today, as well as professional cheesemakers, as well as better sources than you can typically find at Publix, Walmart, your Boar's Head I always point to as an option, your like Saint Andre at Publix, for example, or the Saint Angel, I think it's called, your more mass-produced cheeses. When you look at those, you have, again, a lot more consistency in those products, but you also have a lack of diversity of the flavor of the products. You have because when you have a product that is pasteurized and is produced in that way, you oftentimes kill off bacteria that is going to be beneficial for the flavor of the cheese. Now, professional cheesemakers, they test their cheese to a level that you don't have to worry typically about unpasteurized cheeses. Typically, when it comes to pasteurized cheeses, the only warning that we give people in terms of actually being able to consume it is going to be given to pregnant women, women who are breastfeeding, anybody who is pregnant, anybody who is breastfeeding, as well as any children, for instance, newborns in general, or any toddlers, or anybody who's heavily immunocompromised. Those are going to be the main people that we're concerned about eating or consuming unpasteurized cheese. And as I always warn people at the cheese counter, especially when we talk about things like having any kind of lactose allergy, I'm not a doctor, I'm just a cheese nerd. And so, like, if you have any serious medical questions, always consult your doctor. But generally speaking, for the consumption, unpasteurized cheese is perfectly safe, perfectly fine. I'm sure everybody has the question of, like, what about bringing unpasteurized cheeses back into the country? I went to France. I went to France, when was it? Last November. And while I was there, we had a bunch of unpasteurized cheeses that we had wrapped up and we had brought back with us. When it comes to going through customs, by no means should you say that you don't have cheese that you're bringing back with you. If they ask you if you have cheese, you should say yes. But when it comes to coming back from customs, from my understanding at the moment, the only things that they're really concerned about is bringing back meat, as well as any kind of vegetables, produce, anything that will carry bacteria in that way. Or they'll also potentially be concerned about very young cheese. The reason they worry about that is so you can have unpasteurized cheese here in the country. If it's made in the country, even easier. If it's unpasteurized cheese that's brought into the country, the only requirement around it is that it has to be aged at least 60 days. After the 60-day mark, there should be enough of the water levels and the moisture within the cheese has gone down to such an amount that is now safe for that cheese to travel without having to fear traveling listeria or traveling other bacteria that they would deem as harmful. You are seeing a lot more issues right now, specifically with the FDA not allowing certain ash-ripened cheeses into the country, as well as certain cheeses that have cheese mites on them. Quick tangent about cheese mites. Cheese mites exist everywhere. They're all around us at all times. They are microscopic bugs that exist in our daily life that, again, are everywhere. They're called cheese mites specifically because they work really well at maintaining a cheese, honestly. They latch onto cheese and they eat the cheese from the outside in. And typically you'll see this a lot on bandage wrapped cheese or natural rinded cheeses. So like a bandage wrapped cheddar, for example. Yes, cheese mites. Yeah, little tiny bugs. So you can see them on like bandage wrapped cheddars. So cheddars traditionally, they were wrapped in bandages. You see this a lot more often, oftentimes with like UK cheddars. UK cheeses in general, but they would oftentimes wrap them in cloth fabric. They would then put a layer of lard all over the cloth, and they would add another layer, and they would usually do another layer of lard, sometimes 3 layers of cloth, but that would seal everything inside. Once everything's been sealed inside, at that point it goes through the aging process. So they take it from their manufacturing room, where it's typically kept in like a brine for a period of time, or it'll be held by molds that'll help hold its shape up in a certain way. They then take that cheese and they move it into their aging room. Typically, aging rooms will be like places that maintain certain atmospheric levels. There'll be places that maintain levels of humidity or temperature, and certain qualities provide really good atmospheres for cheese. So high humidity zones oftentimes are good because they keep the cheese hydrated. If you have a environment that is still and there's not a lot of air movement, for example, like if you go deep into caves, there's not a lot of air movement inside of them, that's better for the cheese because as air moves over the cheese, that is going to create friction. Friction is going to draw out moisture from the cheese, and it's going to create more of a dry cheese on the interior. So all these different factors are playing a role in the aging of the cheese. And one thing that plays a big role are the cheese mites. So these cloth-bound cheddars, you can actually see the cheese mites on them. You'll oftentimes have people that monitor the cheeses, and they'll monitor the growth of the cheese mites on the cheese, and they'll walk around with a brush. Let me actually, I have the power of streaming and Twitch on my side. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. YouTube, Cabot. Please don't play an ad. I did not ask you to do that. Cabot, no, Jasper Hill. I think it was Jasper Hill. Jasper Hill cheese mites. But you have people that work specifically in the cheese caves that work to, where is it? That work to make sure that the cheese mites don't get to too heavy of a level, because as they get to too heavy of a level, they're going to dehydrate the cheese more. Now, they are beneficial to the cheese in that we also see some mold on some cheese growth. I'll just go ahead and put that up for all our mold fans out there. But we have all these cheeses that are aged in these storing facilities. Where is the specific one I'm looking for? Now, the cheese mites on the cheese not only dehydrate the cheese on the inside, but what they also do is they help flavor the cheese. They add a more savory aspect to it. They add a little bit more of a umami side to the cheese, but they're eating it as an instrumental part of the process. And people will work in the cheese caves and the cheese storage facilities, monitoring the amount of mites that they have on the cheese, and they'll walk around with essentially what looks like a shoe brush. And they'll just brush off the cheese wheels, making sure that not too many mites gather onto them. We also saw, I used to, when I was at Italy, we would have cheese that would come in from Jasper Hill, which is why I pulled their channel up. Jasper Hill is a place in Vermont. They've got a lot of really good cheeses. You can find a lot of their cheeses like Harbison at typical grocery stores. Little Widmer, I think, is another one of their cheeses you can usually find. But we used to get their Cabot cloth bound, which is their cloth bound traditional cheddar style cheese. And when we would get it in, we would unwrap it. And as we unwrapped and took all of the butcher paper off that we saw just a second ago, where was it? Yeah, we would they would wrap it up in this butcher paper that they have a big roll of. We would get it sent to us, and upon unwrapping it, you would find a big mass of what looked like dust on the cheese. It looked like it was covered in dirt, and so as we were opening it, we would see all this dust, and every now and then, without anybody being nearby, or without anybody being too close to it, or nothing really moving or shifting, something would tumble. And another cheesemonger that sort of took me under his wing at Italy, another cheesemonger who's been doing it for like 30 years or something like that. He was a really great guy. He had a phone with a really powerful zoom, and he would take his phone and he would zoom in on the cheese, and with his zoom, you would be able to see the cheese mites crawl around on there. But yeah, there are microscopic little bugs that exist again all around us, and they are everywhere. I don't quite remember how we got on this tangent, but when we look at our Swiss cheeses, and we look at unpasteurized cheeses, typically unpasteurized cheeses are going to be cheeses that are going to have a lot more flavor to them, as they don't have bacteria that is killed off during the making process. They're also typically going to be cheeses that are going to have a little bit more of a sort of mustiness, barnyardy characteristic side of it, and again, a lot more flavor development than their pasteurized alternatives. Now, pasteurized cheeses are fantastic. There's a lot of wonderful ones out there. Again, safer for anybody who is pregnant or anybody breastfeeding. But with that, we also have the different levels of lactose. That's the worst sound in the world. I don't know if you can hear that. Cow, we've got goat, we've got sheep, and we've got buffalo. So there's all kinds of different creatures that we get milk from that we turn into cheese. Cow, goat, sheep, and buffalo are the main four that we see. Now, these are going to all have different levels of lactose in them. So when we talk about lactose in cheese, there's going to be a lot of people out there who have lactose intolerance. Now, cheese typically has lactose found inside of it. As lactose is aged inside of cheese, it converts from lactose to lactic acid. So, for example, a cheese like Parmigiano Reggiano, that's typically aged, or rather, by requirements, it has to be aged to be true, authentic Parmigiano. It has to be aged for at least 18 months in order to have that title, that designation. Now, with Parmigiano Reggiano, because it is aged for so long, they are actually able to advertise it as being lactose free because all of the lactose is converted into lactic acid. Now, in terms of lactose, buffalo are going to have the most lactose in their milk, and so that's going to have the most rich quality of flavor. After buffalo, it's going to be cow, and then at the bottom, it's going to be sheep and goat, and those are going to both produce a little bit less lactose. Well, a great deal less lactose. So if you have anybody who is a very big sensitivity to lactose, then offering them an aged sheep or goat's milk cheese will oftentimes be easier on their digestive system. But again, this is another one of those moments where I say, don't listen to me, listen to your medical professionals. But again, Parmigiano Reggiano legally is able to advertise themselves as lactose free. So we have specifically today, our two cheeses are going to be both. Where's my other towel? I can't work with that towel. I refuse to work with that towel. That's better. So our two cheeses today are both going to be cow's milk and, oh no, my chalk broke. My chalk broke. Unpasteurized. So both of our cheeses are cow's milk, unpasteurized cheeses, and we have them from two different places. I have on my board up here a little map of Switzerland that I drew. But up here, we have one mountain range down here. Now this is going to be, in terms of where it is in Switzerland, we have a mountain range. This is going to be just north, north, south, east, west? Yeah, this is going to be just northeast of Geneva in Switzerland. So this is going to be Vaud. This is going to be the region of Vaud, the mountain range of Vaud. We have the Vaud Alps. Now in Vaud, there is a collection of cheesemongers that have established a cooperative. Cooperative just being a collection of these cheesemakers. I'm sorry, I said cheesemongers. They're cheesemakers. Them being a collection of cheesemakers that have gotten together and said that the way in which we make Gruyere is no longer traditional. The way in which we make Gruyere is no longer the original recipe in which we were using 100 years ago. So this cooperative, they got together and they established their organization to start producing what they call L'etivaz, which is, where's my chalk? Which is going to be L''. So, L'etivaz is a Gruyere-style cheese. It is made in the same way that it would have been made 100 years ago in a more traditional method, and is made, and overall, I would say, has a much better flavor development compared to Gruyere. Now, when it comes to Gruyere, there's a couple of different things that are interesting about it. Specifically, Gruyere doesn't have a lot of the same name protections that certain other cheeses do. I mentioned a minute ago Parmigiano Reggiano. That has a very, very strict name regulation around it. So, for example, if you look at cheeses in the U.S. that have the Parmesan style or have the Parmesan name, those are cheeses that are made in the same style as Parmigiano Reggiano, but they, however, are not made in Emilia-Romagna in Italy. They are not made in the same standards. They are not made in the same environment. They're not made with the same milk coming from the same animals. It's a very highly regulated process to the point that every single wheel of Parmigiano Reggiano that is out there, there is a number on. That number can be, you can use that number to be able to link it to not only the farm that wheel came from originally, but to the point of where each section or how much milk came from each individual cow towards that wheel of cheese. It's an incredibly rigorous and standardized process as far as the record keeping for these wheels of cheese and for the registration that they have. You can also use Parmigiano as a currency in Italy. So there's all kinds of protection around it. Now, with Gruyere, you don't see Gruyere have a different name in the U.S. You'll notice when you go to like let's say Murray's, and you see that they have Murray's Cave Gruyere. Now that does not necessarily mean that it is a true Gruyere. In order for it to be a Gruyere that comes from specifically Switzerland, it has to be made in Switzerland at a certain elevation. So you have, for example, it'll have the designation of Gruyere AOP. It'll have Le Gruyere, or it'll have Gruyere Alpage, are typically the three accepted designations behind Gruyere, as opposed to, for example, like Murray's Cave Gruyere, which is made, I think, in Wisconsin, or as opposed to, what's another U.S. made Gruyere? U.S. Made Boar's Head Gruyere. Boar's Head. Blanc Gru, Gruyere cheese. Like the prepared in copper vats and aged in the traditional Alpine manner, this earthy aromatic cheese has a firm texture and lush flavor. I have tried Blanc Gru Gruyere cheese. That's about the most mild cheese I've ever had. I was trying it to see the comparison between Boar's Head as compared to a reserve wheel of extra aged Gruyere, and the difference was unsurmountable. But you see here, they're able to use the name Gruyere. They add the Blanc Gru in front of it, which is their specific trademark. But there's no trademark associated with Gruyere. Boar's Head is able to use that openly. A couple years ago, there was a judge in North Carolina who took upon himself to get in the way of the Swiss's attempt at correcting this name change error, in which the Swiss government was trying to claim more name protection rights around Gruyere, and this judge from North Carolina said, no, we already have so many products that Americans make that have the name Gruyere. You've lost the rights to this name at this point. So that was really sad for the Swiss. We love American imperialism at work. It doesn't make me sick in any means whatsoever. But luckily, we have cheese, specifically L'etivaz. So this is specifically a cheese. So I mentioned Gruyere has to be made at a certain elevation. This is specifically a cheese that has to be made at an even higher level of elevation. So this has to be made in the copper vats. This has to be made in open, or rather, this has to be cooked. The copper vats have to be cooked over open fire logs. That's made from a specific wood that's coming specifically from this area of Vaud, Switzerland. There's all kinds of different standards as far as the cellars that go into it, as far as the spaces that they store their cheese in. And they make a bunch of different products of cheese. Now, this is specifically what I have today, the 2023 wheel of L'etivaz. So this was made in, I think it was June of 2022 was about the time that the milk... Ooh, I'm lagging. Why am I lagging? Am I back? I think I'm back now. That's Kamala Harris coming after me. She's mad about the things I've said. She's mad that I didn't illegally vote for her more than once. Anyway, back to what I was saying, we have L'etivaz. So this is a Gruyere that is specifically made at a higher elevation than you typically find most Gruyères in Switzerland made at. Again, this was a cooperative of cheesemakers that said that we are no longer making Gruyere in the traditional fashion, and we need to get back to our traditional roots, including the copper vats, including making it cooking those vats over open log fires, including the aging and brining process that goes into the cheese making. Now, what do you get exactly from a cheese being made at a higher elevation? What do you get exactly from a cheese having, or rather, the animals having a more biodiversity in their diet? So when we look at mountains, as mountains are, as they're towards their base, there's more land. So typically, a mountain from afar will look short. We have a steeple, but when you actually zoom in on the makeup of a mountain, It looks more along the lines of a slope, similar to that. So as you work your way up a mountain in this way, you have less grass. So down here, you're able to have plenty of grass because there's plenty of room for grass to be able to plant its roots. Grass takes a lot of room to be able to grow. And as you work your way up the mountain, you have less grass, and instead you have more, we'll say, flowers. As you work your way up the mountain, you have less room, you have less grass, and more sort of just bushes and bushels of land. And as you work your way up further, there's even less grass, and now you're working with more mosses and lichens. And so as you work your way up the mountain, as you have as your animals go higher and higher up, they're able to eat different types of flora. And so that's going to consist of, again, at the lower side of the mountain, that's going to be more akin to various types of grasses that are growing there. That's going to be more akin to your flowers, your wildflowers. And as you work your way up, you're going to have less opportunity for grasses, and you're going to have more lichens, you're going to have more mosses, you're going to have more plants that grow generally on stone or grow on rock. You're going to have more bushes. But you lose, as you lose the space for those roots, you lose the grass. So by having your animals go up this way, you're introducing more flora into their diet. Therefore, you're introducing more bacteria into their biodiversity of their into their microbiome. With the more diverse microbiome, you have more bacteria, and as you have more bacteria, that's going to be the potential for more flavorful or for more flavor as the cheese grows. As cheese ages, those flavors that you start with generally get more intense and generally get more get stronger as time goes on. So when you look at a typical Gruyere, what is the flavor profile? Typical Gruyere is going to have a strong caramelized onion side to it. It's going to have a decent amount of savory side to it. It's going to have a decent amount of umami. You're going to be able to find light notes of like cashews or Marcona almonds, a little bit of a roasted nuts flavor profile. Now, when I look at L'etivaz, it's a tasty cheese, but overall, the flavor profile is going to be on the front end. It's got a much stronger tropical fruit note. It tastes like pineapple. When you first try it, it tastes like pineapple, and it. As you eat it, you get to the more savory, more of the intense flavor side. You get a little bit of the sharpness that comes from behind the cheese, and that's going to be also it's going to be a little bit sharper, as at this point this cheese has been aged for 2 years. So it's been aged it was aged for a year, and then it was held on to for about another 6 months before it was opened, and it's been worked on for since then. So it's been open for a little while now. But overall, the quality of the cheese has only gotten better with age. This is where we see it start to leave the original realm that it once started in and become a new product, where I would classify it as more of a reserve wheel. As far as the flavor, though, this is going to, again, start out with a very strong pineapple flavor, and then as it goes on, you get very, very fresh summer flavors. You get very, very grassy flavors from it, very strong notes of caramelized onions underneath there as well. I oftentimes will get a little bit of brininess, but it's absolutely delightful. A bunch of floral notes as well. But it's a very, very diverse cheese. It's got a great flavor to it. If anyone has questions at any time, just let me know. Now I get to eat cheese. I've done most of my talking so far. I personally really enjoy washing down my cheese with Dr. Pepper. The 23 flavors and the intense cherry rush pair very well with a lot of Alpine style cheeses. I will warn everybody, it does not pair well with blue cheese. Dr. Pepper and Code Red Mountain Dew both go really, really poorly with blue cheese. I was really upset to find that. I remember at one point I tried to make a soda pie. I saw somebody made a recipe for what they called a water pie, and I said, oh, well, in theory, you would just do the same thing, but with soda. Don't add the sugar into it. Cook it in the same way. It didn't work. It didn't work, and I was very sad. It was also really bad with the cheese. Nothing helped. Nothing made it better. So with L'etivaz, let's look at the PDO video. there's all sorts of different information about it that you can find on their website, and you can always, of course, wait. Oh no, you can always, of course, change it to. Oh God, what have I done? Change it to English. But with that, there's all kinds of information. You can see the storage method. They store them in this way to save space. Now, when we look at the storage of cheese, Switzerland's done something really cool. They took old World War II bunkers and they turned them into cheese aging areas. Let me see if I can find that. Swiss aging. So when you're aging cheese, you want to make sure that you maintain consistent temperature control. Now, in Switzerland, they took their old World War II bunkers that they were using for their artillery for storage, and they have converted them now into cheese caves, which I am in love with. I don't know what that is, which I am in love with for a ton of reasons. This is actually specifically Parmigiano Reggiano. I'm a big fan of, especially the idea of turning something that was made for war into something that is made for food instead. This is going to be, I think, actually Comte. I think that one is specifically from France. But they have these long rooms where they just have massive piles of wheels of these cheeses. Now, Switzerland is known for making a lot of big cheeses. Specifically, Switzerland is known for making Gruyere, which is typically going to be coming in around 60 pounds per wheel. It's also known for making Emmentaler. Emmentaler is a very big wheel of cheese. Emmentaler is made into 200-pound wheels of cheese. Specifically, when we got that delivered to my last shop, it would take all four of us to get the cheese into the building. At which point, it would take all four of us to get it onto a cutting block. At which point, it would take all four of us to be able to break down this 200-pound wheel of cheese. So it's a incredibly massive space that they have these cheeses stored in. There's plenty of room for them to live in, and they make them at a exorbitantly high amount. Last count, I believe, Gruyere was making, I think it was 11 million wheels a year. How many Gruyere wheels a year? How many Gruyere wheels a year made? Get the fuck out of here, AI. 18 to 20 wheels per day, 365 days a year. I don't know the math on that. Math is so hard. I was talking, my siblings have started college recently, and I was talking to them not too long ago about how much I hate math class. I don't mind math, but math class really sucks. But again, let me know if anybody has any cheese questions or anything they're curious about. But 18 to 20, we'll say 20 times 365 is, so yeah, about 7,300 wheels of cheese a year. That's times 60 pounds is a whole lot. 7,300 times 60, I forgot to do that one. 7,300 times 60, 438,000 pounds of cheese made every year of Gruyere. It is a very popular cheese, and that's not including, again, all of the knockoff Gruyères that you have out there. But when we look at cheeses like Gruyere, when you look at cheeses like Swiss cheeses that have that more savory side to them, there's a lot of fun toppings that you can pair them with. Now, Gruyères typically have that more rich, creamy side to them, and that's no exception for the L'etivaz that I have here. Now, as far as pairings, any kind of crackers generally do. I have really good seed crackers that I found not too long ago. They're Leslie Stowe, Raincoast Crisps. I won't give it any endorsement because for all I know, they're support Zionists. But those I have right now, and those are absolutely fantastic. We also have one of my favorites, Zapp's Voodoo. Zapp's Voodoo chips, a fantastic pairing for just about any cheese. The acidity lends itself to great and wonderful places. The smoky vibes goes great with the rich flavors. I really like Voodoo chips with fresh mozzarella. Quite tasty. We have some jams and jellies, and I'm going to be breaking into this more so during my One Piece chapter review. So this is more so a spread for me later if you're sticking around. But I figured I would throw some ideas out there in case anybody's wondering what they can pair with these cheeses. But we have Marionberry jam. I don't know if that can be easily seen by the webcam with the lighting right now. Let me see. There we go. Marionberry. Now this is a family company out in Oregon, Kuzufuku and Sons. They make a lot of really, really good jams. They make a lot of really good toppings for cheese. This is specifically their Marionberry jam. Marionberry is a jam that comes out of comes out of Oregon, but it's specifically a blend of two blackberries that was created by the University of Oregon, and it comes across more like a blackberry blueberry flavor profile. But that one is absolutely delicious. We also have orange marmalade. I'm a really big fan of orange marmalade with a lot of Alpine style cheeses. The orange lends itself very well to the sometimes more tropical flavors, the more caramelized onion flavors. But whenever I use Gruyere for any kind of baking, or if I'm using Gruyere on like fresh toast in the morning, I'm melting it down a little bit. Adding orange marmalade is phenomenal. Or if you were to like make like Gruyere scones and then add a little bit of like orange marmalade on it, that's a good move. That's a really tasty move. I also love with just about any Alpine style I've ever tried it with. Again, Kuzufuku and Sons as the brand out of Oregon. But this one is their cherry jam. It uses actual cherry skins. It's none of that maraschino bullshit. Anybody out there that's saying that they like maraschino cherries, I kind of want to fight you. You know, there's only a couple things that make me want to fight somebody, and it's usually them being transphobic, them supporting Israel, and them not liking or them liking maraschino cherries. That's my red line. Another wonderful thing to pair with Alpines is generally going to be a lot of honeys. I'm a really big honey fan. Now, there's some psychopaths out there. I know of about one or two that like the more intense honeys. There's one individual out there. I'm trying to remember what they called him. He was in that. He sort of had the personality from as a like Hannibal Lecter. You know, he's kind of just that crazy. But he thinks that chestnut honey is phenomenal. I don't know where he gets that idea. If you've tried chestnut honey, it is incredibly bitter. With anything that's aged, typically the flavors that you have when you start, and you see this with cheese, are going to be more intensified as time goes on. Chestnuts, when you turn into honey, is going to be a very, very bitter, very, very unpleasant experience. But I have today a little bit of Italian orange blossom honey. Now, when you're dealing with honey, if you've ever had it to where you have a little bit of honey and it like crystallizes, what you can do, or what I recommend, is have your main container of honey, and as you need more ready to use, take your honey out, add it to another little like mason jar that you have that's clean, and then put that mason jar in a pot of water and boil it. That will reconstitute the honey and melt down the sugar crystals that have formed, and that way you don't have that sort of more crunchy crystallized texture. Now, I actually prefer that texture when I'm eating it with cheese. I think it adds a lot to the flavor, but specifically honeys with Alpine styles do a lot of work to bring out the more floral undernotes of the cheese, bring out a lot more of the adding that level of sweetness helps highlight all of the savory factors, if that makes sense. In the same way that, like, you know, if you adding salt to your baking is going to make it taste sweeter because salt intensifies the flavor. Having that contrast is going to allow your brain to make connections and experience different things, or rather experience things differently. That sort of always reminds me. Do you remember they used to have those little pills that you would they were like a kid's toy, but they were like pills that you would allow to melt on your tongue, and they would like change your taste buds, and you could try like sweet fruit, and it would taste bitter, or you could try sour things and it would taste sweet, or anything along that line. I look at pairings in sort of the same way. What's going to detract but also accentuate. So honey is a really good pairing. Again, I like sort of the lighter honeys. Eucalyptus honey is really lovely. This orange blossom honey, I really like this company that I have. This comes from Nomadic Beekeeping. So this is specifically these guys in Italy that have all these trucks that have beehives in them. The beehives have all the bees, and every 2 cycles of honey processing. They take their bee trucks onto a new location, and they allow the bees to then open up their doors and they bee there. They make honey in that location. Through this process, they're able to go wherever they need to, wherever it's best for that time of year across the different sections of Italy. So they can work with the bees, so the bees don't have to go into the same level of hibernation. The bees can maintain working and maintain making food. But it's a wonderful system that they have. And from my understanding, a really good company too, as far as the treatment of the bees, which is always preferred in my experience. I like the good and ethical treatment of animals. So that's L'etivaz. Let me get some water. I've been talking for like an hour and I'm all out. So aside from L'etivaz, I have another cheese today. I have another cheese, and this is my quick hack to wrapping cheese. Ziploc bag. Never a bad idea. People ask me all the time, how do you wrap your cheese at home? There's a couple different ways to do it. This is my easy access. I have currently some cheese paper that I'm using for this cheese. Cheese paper is paper that's made specifically for wrapping cheese with. You can often find it made by Formaticum, but I've been using cheese paper. But a quick solution is wrapping it up in a Ziploc bag. Ziploc bags work wonders. They do great. You can also wrap up your cheese in Ziploc foil, wax paper, and just tape it shut. If you do anything like that, though, I always also recommend taking your cheese, and with cheese paper as well, taking it and putting it into a little Tupperware. By putting your cheese into a Tupperware, that's going to give it its own little microbiome in which it's separated from the fan that is in your refrigerator, because again, as cheese is existing, any air that flows across it is going to be friction, and that is going to draw moisture from the cheese. So having it separate from your fan, as well as having it separate from your dehumidifier. Just about every fridge that anybody owns has a built-in dehumidifier inside of it, and again, that's just going to draw out more moisture from the cheese. So putting into, let's say, a Ziploc bag, or putting it in, wrapping it up in some type of light paper or what have you, and then putting it into that Tupperware is only going to increase the longevity of your cheese, only going to add the amount of time in which you can have it inside of your refrigerator. Now, a lot of people also wonder and worry about the strength of cheese, how much they have to worry about their cheese going bad. Typically, when it comes to hard cheeses, so like when you look at cheeses like, typically when it comes to hard cheeses, so when you look at cheeses like Gruyere, when you look at cheeses like Comte, Parmigiano Reggiano, those are going to be cheeses that are going to be on the harder side and going to last quite a bit longer compared to a soft cheese. So for example, like a brie is going to have a lot more moisture inside of it, and so it's going to have a lot more opportunity for that moisture to affect the cheese quality. It's going to have more opportunity for bacteria growth as well as bacteria development. These are all things that we look out for as cheese develops and as cheese ages. And so typically older cheeses, I give, if you buy them fresh from the store, usually about like 1 to 2 months before you start seeing a noticeable difference. You might pick up a little bit of mold here and there, depending on the cheese, depending on its environment, depending on all these factors. If you ever have artisanal cheese that you find mold on, you can just take your knife or take whatever you're using, scrape off whatever mold you have, and then go on using the rest of the cheese. The mold is just going to be a problem if you eat it, or if it's black. If it's black mold, then I don't recommend it, of course. If it's your fuzzy mold or like a little bit of blue or green, it can just be scraped off to whatever comfort level you have and gotten rid of, and you can continue consuming the rest. I have known some people that would clean off every side that was open when the mold started spreading, but to each their own. If that's your comfort level, then by all means. But in this economy, it's always better to save money. And I like using as much of this cheese as possible before it goes bad. So with our hard cheeses, I usually give them about 1 to 2 months. With our medium firm cheeses, sort of our wetter cheeses, something similar to like a Morbier, or something similar to like a raclette, or for example, like a soft tome style. Those are going to be, or more pliable tome style, those are going to be your mild range cheeses in terms of density, your more semi-firm cheeses. Those I usually give anywhere from about 2 weeks to a month before, usually around the 2 week mark, because especially if you don't like unwrap your cheese, allow it to air out, and rewrap it in something fresh. If you don't do that process, usually about 2 weeks, you'll start seeing a little bit of mold. A month on the longer end, depending on the, again, strength of the cheese, depending on how strong it is, how dense it is. Now, your softer cheeses, those are going to be really where a lot of the danger comes from as far as a product going bad. The first thing that you typically see is an ammoniation of the outside. So, for example, specifically with your bloomy rind cheeses like brie or camembert, when you open them up out of the wrapper that they come in, or whether that's plastic or whether that's paper, they'll oftentimes have a little bit more of a strong ammonia scent, a little bit more of a intense funkiness, more of a strong, like bitter, vegetal, stinky quality to them. That's going to be typically a cheese that's on the more older side, a cheese that's going to be a little bit more intense. Not necessarily bad, but it is going to be a stronger, runnier, bigger in flavor. Now, with soft cheese, generally the rule is if it looks bad or if it tastes bad, then I would just consume at your comfort level. If it looks bad, then I generally don't trust it. If it smells bad, I trust my nose more than most things. But for the most part, I don't mind eating a little bit of an ammonia scent from a cheese of that quality. Now, also with bloomy rind cheeses, if you have a little bit of that ammonia scent, you can also leave them unwrapped for like 30 minutes or so, and that'll dissipate a little bit. Sometimes it's just a matter of it's been sealed up for a little bit too long. It's not necessarily like on its verge of being way too powerful. It just needs to air out a minute. So sometimes just giving it a little bit of a berth can do it some good. Giving it a little bit of a break off in a corner somewhere away from dogs and children is never a bad idea. Anyway, I have another cheese today. This cheese is called Schallenberg. I'm actually gonna. This one's a little bit more going on to it moisture-wise. I just realized this is going to be a pain for anybody that hates the word moist. You know, like the How I Met Your Mother that started that. You know, How I Met Your Mother had that episode of like, oh, I hate that word, and then every single person adopted that as their personality. I'm not saying that there's a correlation. Maybe people hate that word. I'm just saying. That's where I remember seeing it first. So I have another cheese here. This is a cheese called Schallenberg. Schallenberg is absolutely delicious. So Schallenberg is an Alpine style, another unpasteurized cow's milk cheese. Schallenberg is specifically a cheese that is made on the more, which part is it? This is going to be made on the more northeast side of Switzerland. So before we were talking about down here is Geneva, before we were talking about the Vaud region. Now instead we're going to be talking a little bit further than that. We have the Schallenberg Pass mountain range, as well as we have the Reichenbach bunkers. So with Schallenberg is made in that mountain range, in the Schallenberg mountain range, which is also where you're going to find a lot of Emmentaler made. Now Emmentaler is going to be a product we talked about earlier that has big 200-pound wheels that it's made into. Now, Schallenberg is specifically made from the leftover milk from Emmentaler. They were trying to figure out a use for it, and they ended up producing this. This is a cheese that's aged right about 6 to 8 months, depending on the time of year. This is a cheese aged about 6 to 8 months, and it's during the making of it, they have extra cream added into it. So this is an extra rich, extra creamy, flavorful cheese coming from Switzerland. Absolutely incredible, really tasty. It's got strong toffee, brothy flavors to it, very strong floral flavors to it as well. But it's absolutely delicious, wonderful with again honeys. I think the site that or the producers that it comes from define or describe it as having the flavor of an onion bagel with cream cheese, which is absolutely beautiful. One of my favorite things to eat in the world, but. Really tasty cheese. My cheese shop brought this in not too long before I left, so I was able to get a little bit before I moved to a new city. But I'm a really big fan. Again, it has that more intense flavor behind it. It's going to have a little bit more of a floral side to it, a little bit more earthiness, but overall the flavor is absolutely incredible. I mentioned this is named Schallenberg. This is specifically the Schallenberg Reserve. So the Schallenberg Reserve is made at the Schallenberg Pass. Again, this is on Schallenberg Mountain, which is going to be a part of the Schallenberg Pass. And there's also a waterfall there. Now, this is where the same region that they make Emmentaler in. And this cheese is specifically aged at Reichenbach bunkers. Now, I mentioned bunkers a little bit before. Where is it? The Reichenbach bunkers are absolutely beautiful. They are hidden behind a wonderful waterfall inside of a gorge, but is a huge, huge space. Isn't that pretty? Isn't that pretty and picturesque? Just a little metal door hidden into the entryway of a mountain. It looks Lord of the Rings. Got us Belok. Open the door. Friend in Dwarvish. But yes, Reichenbach is a one of those artillery spaces that was converted into cheese caves, and now they age cheese there. This Schallenberg is specifically made by the good people at Gormino. Gormino is another Swiss cooperative, a group of cheesemakers that got together, and here's the actual viewscape of the of Schallenberg Mountain. There's so many beautiful things in Switzerland. My old boss recently got to see the cows coming down the mountain. For anybody who doesn't know, over in Switzerland, once a year, all of the cows that are going up into the mountains, that are working their way up the mountains, they come back down. They work their way back down, and as they work their way back and they're greeted into the village, they wear all of these cowbells, reeds. They get dressed up. They put on flowers, bouquets all over the cows. And the entire town welcomes them back and congratulates them on a summer well spent. Now the cows work their way up into the mountains during the summer months, and then as it gets colder, they're going to work their way back down the mountain. Now, as you work with mountains, as you deal with mountains, traveling on mountains sucks. I went hiking a couple weeks ago with my sibling, and it was absolutely dreadful. We had a good time, but it was incredibly hot. It was incredibly exposed. Now, this is going to be a different environment, of course, but hiking is really hard, especially if you're carrying a lot of things. So I have always been fascinated in the way in which geography adds limitations or influences the way something is made, specifically in this sense with cheese. And we're talking about Alpines. We specifically look at something known as salt. Salt is something that is prevalent in all cheese, just about. Salt is instrumental in the cheese making process. Some of the basically the only ingredients needed for cheese is going to be milk, rennet, and salt. That's generally the only three that you need. Rennet is going to be an enzyme that acts as an acidifier to separate out the whey from the curds. And then the salt is going to be what turns the curds into what will actually be able to be preserved and aged. So as you're working your way up a mountain in Switzerland, again, you see a lot of steep cliffs. You see a lot of land you have to traverse. Let me see if I can zoom in on that. You have a lot of land you have to traverse, and you have all of your materials that you have with you that you have to carry along with you on your path. So that's, you have to carry your carts. You have to have your any animals that are going to pull your carts. You have to have all of your cows that you're leading with you. You have to maintain where they're going. You have to keep them all together. You have to do all these different things. It's very hard and intensive, laborious work. The last thing that you want to carry with you is a bunch of salt that you have to carry along the way, because as you're making your way up the mountain, you're making your cheese. Because your animals are milked every single day. So the further up the mountain that they go, you're going to have different flavor profiles that's going to lead to different cheeses. So for example, at the bottom of the mountain, you're going to have Gruyere that was made with the milk that was at 1,000 feet elevation, as opposed to the towards the end of the summer, that same flock of cows, that same herd is going to be making Gruyere that is made at 3,000 feet. above elevation, or at 3,000 elevation. And so that's going to have a completely different biodiversity. That's going to have a completely different bacteria makeup. It's going to be made in the same fashion, made in the same way, but it's going to be a very different product in terms of the flavor profile. Now, as they make their way up the mountain, as I mentioned, they make the cheese because they have to milk their animals every day. They have to have all that milk, and it's a lot easier to get rid of the whey that comes from the cheese making process. You can feed that to the cows. You can the cows can use that as a little bit of a liquid nourishment. You can use that whey, and that's a lot less material that you have to carry because you no longer have to carry. Each cow generally produces, I think it's 60 gallons of milk every day. Like 60 gallons of milk is a lot to carry. You lose, or you get to keep about 10% of your weight when it comes to cheese. So when you take 60 gallons of milk that you get from a cow every day and turn that into 6 pounds of dry material, dry matter, that's a lot more easy to continue carrying up the mountain. Now, if you have a lot of salt in your cheese, having a lot of salt in your cheese is going to dry out your cheese a lot faster. So when you look at cheeses like Parmigiano Reggiano, those are cheeses that are unyielding. Those are cheeses that are unpliable, cheeses that have no give to them. You try to, bend a Parmigiano in any kind of way, it's going to snap, crackle, pop. However, if you take a look at like my Schallenberg that I have here, that's aged around like 8 months, you can see it has bend to it without did I break it? It broke a little, but it has give to it. It's more stretchy, more pliable, more rubbery. And so what that achieves is two things. One, you don't have to carry as much salt with you because you're not using as much salt in the cheese making process, which means you're going to have a less salty flavor of the cheese, which means you're also going to have a more diverse flavor profile. Because there's a less accentuated salt flavor, you're able to get some more of the more minute or some of the more subtle flavor profiles in the cheese. As opposed to for example, what is it? As opposed to, another benefit is also the fact that it's going to be less salty in general. It's also going to be, what was I going to say? You also don't have to carry as much salt with you up the mountain, is what I was going to say. You also don't have to carry as much salt with you up the mountain, which is incredibly beneficial to the actual cheese making process. It speeds up your ability to move up the mountain. There's all kinds of benefits to it. Another one is that having a more salty cheese, you are going to have that more unyielding texture, that more unyielding density. If you were to drop that cheese on your way back down the mountain, one of the problems that you can run into is if that were to hit the ground and hit a rock, that hits a rock and then it falls in half and breaks and it shatters and cheese gets everywhere and there goes your winter food supply. As opposed to if you were to drop a wheel of Gruyere that has a little bit of a bounce and a little bit of a pliability and a little bit of give to it, that hits the ground and it gets a dent, but the whole cheese is still fine. You still have your entire wheel of cheese that you can continue aging and continue using for the future. So you don't have to worry about starving that winter. We see cheese come about in an effort to prolong the human experience. Cheese is one of the reasons we have made it this far, and without cheese, I don't know what we would be doing. So I have 2 cheeses, Schallenberg, L'etivaz. All of them go with the same things. All of them go with similar things, honeys, fruit jams. I really like cherry jams. Any kind of honestly potato chips like sweet chili Doritos, or as I brought up, the Zapp's Voodoo are really good for them. But I think that's gonna do it for my cheese class today. Unless anybody has any questions before I sign off. I want to thank everybody that stopped in, everybody that stopped by to say hello. I want to let you know I'm going to do another one. I think in 2 weeks I'm going to do another cheese class. I think next time I'll be talking about some cheddars. But I'm excited to get started with cheese Weeb stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for stopping in. I'm excited to get started with cheese Weeb stuff and doing this more consistently and teaching people about cheese and trying stuff together. But thanks everybody for stopping in. I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of your day. I hope everybody's able to stay safe. I also forgot to mention this at the start of my stream, but I think it would be remiss to continue without bringing up the ongoing genocide in Palestine and want to encourage everybody to work for the continued justice for the Palestinian people and the continued relief as they face a starvation campaign and the final solution of their ethnic cleansing. Free Palestine, fuck ICE. Thanks everybody for stopping by. I love to most of you. Stay safe. Watch out for the Nazis. They are prevalent and all around us. And I'll be back on in a couple minutes if anybody cares for my One Piece chapter review. One Piece time. So I'm a boy. I don't know if I can sing the song with a P.
Flames rise, the sky ablaze, shadows writhe in hell's dark maze. Swords clash, the echoes scream, blood-soaked ground, a devil's dream. Fire